So I'm making this video to address the investor buying in the city of Detroit, which I am not against. The problem that I have is that too often the investors are buying the properties. They're not bringing the properties up to code. They're not adding value to our communities. And this is a prime example. The colonial that's trimmed in yellow, if you look atop, you'll see there are shingles on the roof. And those shingles have been there for nearly a year and a half. Yes, a year and a half. May of 2017. Okay, and this video is being shot September of 2018. The tenants had to move out of the property, and they were actually good tenants, which, if you know anything about the rental market, that is extremely difficult these days to find good tenants. They were good tenants, and yet they moved out because the owner would not do the renovations. And so what's happening, investors are flooding the Detroit market. They're buying properties because they're cheap, and they just throw them together, stick someone in there, and voila, start collecting rent. As I stated, this is not adding value to our communities. It is a danger to the tenants because the properties aren't up to code. This house, for instance, the tenant said that the ceiling just fell in, just caved in the kitchen. And it was never repaired. And so, yes, someone could have been standing underneath and could have been seriously injured, or maybe even killed. They had young children in the house. I would like to see more owner-occupants. Detroit has such a large inventory of vacant properties. If you want a brick home, small, large, if you don't mind a frame home, whatever style, you can find it here in the city of Detroit. And yes, there is a problem with crime, but it's not the entire city. I mean, as a Detroiter, there are areas that I just don't go to if I don't have to. Not because I'm afraid, because I'm a native Detroiter, so I wouldn't be fearful as someone who doesn't know the city as I. But if there's no reason for me to be there, I just don't go. And you have to work with someone that's from the city of Detroit, and don't buy sight unseen, and get to know the areas. And as I said, work with someone from the city of Detroit, and you know where to buy. Because you can come here and buy a home for $5,000 in a stable area. You can spend 10 grand. You can spend 15. You can spend 20. And you will be able to also do other things. And so you don't have to spend 15, 30 years on a mortgage and not able to maybe start a business or put your children through college, take vacations. You know, you're able to do those things if you don't have a $1,500, $1,800, $2 grand mortgage. And so you can buy a home that has good bones, good structure, is built soundly, and you could put money into renovating it. And you can do that at your own pace. But the thing is, you have to have a plan. Okay, if you just move in and just get set up, you know what happens with us? We tend to get settled, and that's where we are. But if you buy a home, pay cash, pay outright for a property that is stable, is soundly built, is in a stable community, and you go in with a plan of renovation, even if you have to live in a certain portion of the property. Okay, maybe you move in and you need to immediately address the mechanics of the property. You know, the heating and cooling, the electrical, the plumbing, those sorts of things. That's what you do. You have to go in with the money for that. Like I said, that's quality of life and it's safety. So maybe you budget to spend 10 grand on a property and you have 5 set aside to immediately repair mechanics if that's the kind of property that you chose to buy. Or maybe you set a budget of $6,000 to pay cash for the property, and maybe you say, well, we'll put 4 or 5 aside, and we have a total of 10 grand to find something. You know, most adults, your income tax return could provide 2/3 of that. So if you generally receive $5, $6, $7, sometimes $9,000 back in returns from your income tax, why not set a goal if it's something that you're interested in? Because home buying is a big responsibility. Okay. And if you're not the kind of person that want to get your hands dirty, if you don't want to cut grass, if you don't want to pick up litter, if you don't want to be bothered with repairing anything in the home, well then home buying isn't for you. Hi, how are you? Home buying isn't for you. Because as a tenant, those are the things that your landlord will handle. But if you want to have something that you can, put your own style and personality in, build equity into a property, if you want that sense of pride of ownership, then yes, owning is a good deal. And I look at it as, if I were to sell my property today, and if I only get back exactly what I paid for the property, even though I've new windows and doors and furnace and all of that, even if I get back exactly what I paid for the property, I still win. And here's why. If I were renting, I've been in this property for over 8 years now. If I were renting, and say for instance I was renting anywhere from $800 to $1,000 per month. Now that's nearly 10 grand a year. And you already talking almost 90 grand in rent I would have spent. And I paid even half of that for the property. So, if I were renting, I would not be getting 90 grand back the day I moved out. So if I paid less than half of that 90 grand, I'm still winning. So if I sold my property exactly for what I paid for it today, under 40, I'm still winning. Because if I had rented, I would have paid 90 grand and I wouldn't get anything back. And so, and I look at it as a even more of a profit if I get back what I've spent in renovations. Now, if I get that back in renovations and more, I'm well beyond the point of profitability. And also, it's my home. It's not an investment property. I have lived in it. I've enjoyed it. And for this reason, I've gotten so much more out of the property than if it were strictly a business investment. So I have to take that in consideration too. And oftentimes homeowners, they don't do that. I need to sell it for exactly this or that. Sure, you do want your property to increase in value. But I don't think it's really a good idea for a homeowner to look at a property in which you have lived and enjoyed strictly as a business investment, because it's not. I have rental property and I look at those properties in a different way than I look at the property in which I live. Once again, like I said, because I lived in it, I've enjoyed it, and there's a sense of pride and ownership in which I get from it. So that is all to be included in any decisions and your perception about things. So like I said, I couldn't lose today, even if I sold my property exactly for what I paid for it, considering, yes, I enjoyed those new windows, I enjoyed those new doors, and I've enjoyed having a new furnace, and so I still would benefit from getting only what I put in. Now, do I want to make more money off of it? Of course. So if I get 60, 70, 80, 90 out of it, great. But like I said, if you compare to renting, I would have spent nearly $90,000 in the 8 years in renting, which is the average rent rate for the Detroit market, in a house or in an apartment in a good area, because to be honest, it's hard to find good apartments in Detroit. So you have to go either midtown area, downtown, or in the suburbs, and you're going to spend $1,000 and up. So like I said, I would have spent nearly 90 grand in the 8 years I've lived here, and I haven't even spent that in buying my home and putting in new windows. I only have 4 new windows replaced. And I had a lot of windows. I've even had the installer say, "Boy, you have a lot of windows in this house." And new and doors, and like I said, furnace and other things. I still haven't spent $90,000. And that's 8 years. And so I'm going to get back money from this property once I move. You don't do that as a renter. Whatever you spent, you haven't built any equity, and when you say bye-bye, that's it. So I say all that to say, because I don't know who my audience is at this point, but that's something to consider. Because Detroit market is low. That's what the stock market is. You want to buy low and sell high. And that's what investors understand. But that's not what the average Jane or Joe doesn't seem to understand. But we want home buyers that are owner occupants to help build Detroit. This is what we need, and people that are going to come in and keep their lawns cut and shovel their snow and pick up litter and teach their children to pick up litter and teach their children how to shovel snow and rake grass, and folks that's going to plant flowers and participate with community activities. That's what builds strong neighborhoods, strong communities. And that's the difference in urban areas and suburbs, because that's what they do in the suburbs. The people that live in the suburbs, they are middle income people, and today even low income. But those particularly that own a home, they care. And they care to teach their children. And they have the children to get involved. And they get involved in community associations. And they go to meetings. And they go to the kids' schools and go to the parent-teacher conferences and get involved in PTA. Those are the things that build strong communities and build children that are prepared to add value to society, and that's what we need in Detroit. We need more people to come here and say, yes, I'm going to buy a home. I'm going to renovate my home. I'm going to take pride in it. My partner, my spouse, my kids. And that's what we need. We're not getting it. We need to stop the influx of these doggone investors that are just buying and slapping this crap together. Just crappy work, slapping it together and sticking just any tenant in there. They don't even vet the tenants. They don't. So we end up with tenants that don't care. House look like crap. Tenants fly up and down the street and don't pick up trash, and it's just a mess. It is a mess. So I hope I've maybe inspired some people who around this world, and particularly in the United States and anywhere else, whether you're Canada, Mexico, we're global now. But if you are interested in buying a property to live in, and I'm talking about live in, I've already dealt with investors. I thought maybe that I could even impress this upon them, and that ideal of having someone in the community at the table. Well, you know what? They're not interested. They're not interested in social responsibility, and it's sickening. So investors, don't contact me. I want to help those who want to buy a home and live in it, renovate it, live in it, add value to our communities. If you are interested as an owner-occupant and you want to get to know the city of Detroit, send me a message and we'll communicate. If I determine that you're serious, and when I say serious, just the desire, and serious that you are not an investor, because if I find out you're an investor, I'm not going to deal with you. If you are serious, you want to buy a property in Detroit and be able to move in it and add value to the community, message me. And if I can determine that you meet my criteria, I'll work with you. I will let you know properties that are available in good areas, and I'll be checking you out just like you can check me out. Like I said, I'm not going to deal with any investors. Detroit has really, really stable areas throughout the city. Detroit is a very large city, very large city. And you can move in areas, like I said, that are safe. People who care, you want to move to those areas. And working with a native Detroiter, they can direct you. But we need more owner occupants. We need more owner occupants. These investors are just they're just flooding the market of Detroit. And like I said, it's doable for poor folk, middle income folk. If you have a dream to own your own home, you're tired of renting, you're tired of living in trailer parks, you're tired of bouncing from home to property, couch surfing, any of those things, tired of living in an apartment, yes, message me. Thank you.